1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Immigrants and Exiles podcast, recorded at the Beachcomber Cafe in St Kilda between me, Moreno, and my friend Walter. In this episode, Walter and I talk some more about our parents, rats as big as cats, whether Walter was conceived on a ship, his fascination with broad beans, and how both of us received a $1,500 gift. We're in Melbourne. My dad meets us at Port Melbourne. We sailed to Australia on the Sydney. My mother Morena and I. Well, my name's Moreno. She was Morena.
But the Moors were not involved.
Walter, shush. Hugo meets us at obviously Port Melbourne, and we're boarding in a house with a family in North Fitzroy. I think we've got a bedroom, and my mum has the use of the kitchen. So, and that's 1958. We left Italy, my mum and I was 2.5, on the 3rd of March, 1958. I was terrified of my father when we arrived, because I didn't know who he was. He'd reach out to pick me up or something, and I'd scream. I didn't want to go near him, but I got used to him. So that was fine. So what were your parents doing? They arrived here, what?
They arrived here and I was born pretty soon after, so I must have been conceived before they left.
Were you conceived on board a ship?
No. I was conceived somewhere in Italy, I'd say.
In Italy?
So I think...
In Rome?
Probably, yes.
Does that have any... Okay.
So, that's part of my interesting story. I don't know how far I should go into that.
Well, it's up to you.
Let's just say that I was a witness to my parents' wedding in the 1980s.
Oh, you were? Okay.
My wife and I, and we just looked at each other and said, just sign the book,
sign
for
the
God's
book.
sake.
You were the witnesses for their wedding.
But that also gave me, that revelation gave me
What revelation, sorry?
Of the circumstances in which I was born.
Right.
Gave me, in a sense, an even greater respect and wonderment about them as people of great spirit and adventure and courage.
Courage.
It's
courage.
People, and gives you an insight into the hidden secrets, the gems of the private world of every individual. That they do things that society may not condone, but which in fact people within society are always doing.
Did your parents eat spaghetti, Walter?
No, we weren't great spaghetti eaters.
No.
Only in latter years I found my mother reverting to things that she would do as a young woman in Italy. Mm-hmm. So she made me fall in love with spaghettini al pomodoro con l'aglio.
Yum.
And fresh extra virgin olive oil, and that excited the hell out of me.
Yeah.
I still make that at home for myself secretly every now and again.
So they were originally going to go to Sydney, weren't they?
They were going to go to Sydney. They fell in love with Sydney, but my father's mother, who'd emigrated here from Italy because she didn't like Italy, she had moved to Melbourne. So my dad was particularly close to her.
So we're talking about your grandmother on your dad's side, right?
That's correct.
She was another Alexandrian Egyptian Italian, right?
Yes, she'd borne 13 children and raised 14.
Okay, so when they were booted out of Egypt, the exiles, she was one of them. Her husband decided to stay in Egypt somehow. He stayed. I don't know. How would he have managed that? Who knows? But she didn't like being sent to Italy, so she came to Australia instead.
I think everybody went to Italy first, but then I think a couple of her daughters came to Melbourne and a couple of her sons, and most of the others who were still living went to Milan, and one stayed in Rome. Yeah, okay. But my dad was particularly attached to his mother for reasons I don't quite know.
Okay. Well, it's all right to love your mum, It's right.
But she died a year after they came.
Okay. So they're in Melbourne.
They're in Melbourne. We lived in Green Street, Richmond, right next to the railway line, where my mother said the rats were bigger than the cats.
Okay. God.
And even the cats would just stare at the rats.
Oh, fantastic.
There's only so many you can eat.
Oh, God.
It was fantastic. Yeah.
Your mum had a way with words. she was. I think I've told. I mean, your mum. I loved your mum. You know, whenever I visited, I always felt very much at home. We ate there. I ate there a couple of times with you, and you know.
Yeah, I think
she was very warm, created a very welcoming environment.
Yes, and but at the same time, like a lot of people from northern Italy, they could be very sort of stoic and introverted and judgmental.
Yes.
But when you came into the house, she was very welcoming, and she was quite good as a conversationalist, even if there wasn't a lot of talk at home.
She sounded Roman, didn't she?
A little bit of that Roman look, because she was 6 years old when she went there.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Although the Roman Romans would always say, "Oh, you're not a Roman.
Of course,
you must be from up north."
Of course, it's like Australians saying to Italians, "You're not really Australian, even though you're naturalised."
That's right. So when I was there, living there, and partly growing up there, I would hear some of them speaking, the younger ones with the Roman lilt, and then others speaking Friulian or Veneto. You know, it's great for brain development.
Yeah, well, it would be. Yes. There's this acknowledged benefit in growing up speaking a couple of languages. It stretches your brain.
Yeah, and my father's family here was incredibly cosmopolitan, because, as you were saying before, living in Alexandria but being a European descent. Yeah. They obviously spoke the national language, Arabic. Then they spoke their cultural language, which was Italian. Then they spoke the educational language, the imperial language, which was French. Right. So I grew up with those three languages. But then there were other members of the family that were either Greek or Maltese or Danish. So it was complex but exciting. And any party here in Melbourne was, again, not really a migrant sort of experience. Mainly migrants would go through chain migration, all come from a certain village, you know, or a certain area of Italy, whereas these people who came from the Middle East, Europeans, they brought such eclectic cultures with them. It was an amazing experience to go to parties.
Okay, my parents, like I said, they were straight migrants. A little bit aspirational, because we weren't being bombed, okay? There was no starvation in the village. Tuscany was relatively well off. People around the rest of Italy envied the Tuscans because of the food they had, the know-how with animals and agriculture.
That's fascinating, because I always remember my mum saying, and they lived near the Foro Italico on the Pineta. And she said that she hated le fave, broad beans, because that's all they had to eat a lot of the time. Yes. In Rome.
Yes. Yeah. Why is fave special?
Why? I think they were cheap to grow.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I remember my parents eating them as well. I never got into broad beans. So, but look, as far as languages are concerned, as you know, the Tuscan dialect is the Italian language, okay? And we hung around in Melbourne and later on in the northeast of Victoria, where we moved, with other Italians. Straight Italian migrants, okay? Everybody spoke a standard kind of Italian. We mixed a lot with Sicilians and Calabrians, mainly with Sicilians on the farm. And they were easy to understand too. I remember listening to the Sicilian dialect when these people were talking among each other. That was fine. My parents, my dad in particular, and you told me that your parents did the same thing. They bought me, in 1968, they bought me the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yes.
The white volumes. I don't know what yours was. Was yours the red one or the brown covered one?
Ours had a kind of material, but with a black binding.
Okay. Well, you probably had something special, but my father spent $1,500.
It was a lot.
It was a lot of money.
Yep.
And it just tells you, I think, what his aspirations were for me, and probably your parents too. They buy you the Britannica. This is going to help you get through life, you know. So there we are. I'm on a tobacco farm. I'm a 13-year-old boy, and they bought me the Encyclopedia Britannica. But we didn't get to the northeast of Victoria for a few more years yet.